In the quiet town of Hollow Creek, Elm Street was known for its beautiful old Victorian houses. Yet among these, one house stood abandoned and neglected, shrouded in an aura of dread. The locals whispered about its dark past, about how the Owens family had vanished without a trace years ago. Now only stories of eerie occurrences remained. Emily, a young journalist with a thirst for a good story, moved into town to uncover the truth. She was drawn to the mystery of the Owens house, determined to find out what really happened. Against the advice of the townsfolk, she decided to spend the night in the house, hoping to uncover its secrets. As twilight fell, Emily approached the house, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. The house loomed before her, its windows dark and vacant. The front door was slightly ajar. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. The interior was cold and musty. The air was thick with neglect. Dust-covered furniture and cobwebs adorned every corner. She set up her camera and recorder, hoping to capture any paranormal activity. The first hours passed uneventfully, with only the occasional creak of the old house breaking the silence. At around midnight, the temperature dropped suddenly. Emily wrapped her coat tighter around herself, trying to ignore the chill. She walked through the corridors, her flashlight casting long, eerie shadows. She felt a growing sense of unease, as if she were being watched. In the living room, she noticed an old family portrait hanging above the fireplace. The faces of the Owens family stared back at her, their expressions solemn and lifeless. She turned away, unnerved, and continued her exploration. Suddenly, the recorder picked up a faint whisper. Emily froze, her heart racing. She played back the recording, straining to hear the words. It was a child's voice, barely audible. "Help me." Determined to find the source, Emily followed the sound down to the basement. The air grew colder as she descended the creaky stairs. The basement was pitch dark, and the flashlight barely piercing the inky blackness. She could hear her own heartbeat echoing in the confined space. Then she saw it, a small, shadowy figure standing in the corner, barely illuminated by her flashlight. It looked like a child. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The figure didn't move, but instead, a cold, malevolent presence filled the room. Emily felt as an icy hand gripped her shoulder. She spun around, whipping the flashlight, but no one was there. Panic surged through her as she stumbled back, her flashlight flickering. Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Emily was plunged into darkness. She fumbled with her flashlight, her hand shaking. When she finally managed to turn it on, the shadowy figure was gone. In its place, though, stood a tall, gaunt figure. Its eyes were hollow, and its mouth was twisted into a sinister grin. "Get out," it hissed, its voice echoing with the cries of the damned. Emily backed away, her mind screaming to flee, but the figure advanced. Its movements were unnatural and jerky. She turned and ran up the stairs, banging on the basement door, but it wouldn't budge. Desperation clawed at her as she turned to face the figure again. It was closer now, its hand reaching out towards her. Emily screamed, her voice echoing through the empty house. The figure's hand closed around her throat, and she felt life being drained from her. Her vision darkened, and her screams fading to a whisper. It wasn't until the next morning that the townsfolk found the house eerily silent. Emily's camera laid shattered on the floor, the recorder still running. They discovered that her lifeless body was in the basement, and her face had been twisted into a form of terror. The house on Elm Street remains abandoned, its dark secret intact, and the townsfolk whisper of the journalist who had dared to uncover the truth, only to become another victim of the house's malevolent spirit. And so, the legend continues, the warning passed on to each new generation. But as the house remained dark and foreboding, its ancient secrets lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next curious soul to venture too deep into its embrace.